Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. We are currently on the second episode of The Price of Loss Exceptional Story. In the last episode we found a tent full of people who needed help, and they were all helping each other and things. And now we've been invited to take honey in a giant circle. Not really sure where this is going, but the bundled man gave us a mirror and we just took it. The back of the mirror is monogrammed with the letters M.A. Belonged to my sister. She inherited the same disease I have. For the longest time, she was the only company I needed. We debated our interpretations of literature, saw every performance at Mahogany Hall. The bundled man smiles, the corner of his eyes wrinkling. But she wanted to stay in the tomb colonies. I couldn't stand it there. He shakes his head and goes back inside the tent. A Celine triangle of chairs. People wait, spoons in hand, for the moribund performer to begin. She clinks her spoon against the inside of a jar, swills the contents, then pulls out a thick glob. It is time. So here it looks like we're going to have a choice. We can either take the honey. People are starting to swallow the honey. It's your turn. Or we can look into the hand mirror. I'm not sure what's the best choice here. I think we'll use the honey. The mirror is the obvious choice because he just gave it to us, but I don't know. The honey seems like the more interesting thing. Transported to the parabola. The thick honey sticks to your throat as it goes down. The familiarity of the tent vanishes, the warmth and light of the fire, the whispering of gathered people, all replaced with a dream in parabola. This is not a good place to be. The waswood. The trees stretch so tall their crowns vanish, then sink back to saplings, drawing water from fluctuating soil. Across their bark, insects come alive, and die and come alive. A cyclical metamorphosis, the unmooring of maturation. Everything that happens here has already happened, and will happen again. You are lost. So, we can mourn something lost. It is alive and present. We can ambulate through the trees. The flora blossoms into shapes it already was. Or you can call out to another presence. Someone from the gathering could be around here. We have a high strength character, so I am going to go with this. Knowable paths. There are discernible rules to what happens here. A chrysanthemum that wilts and blossoms anew is still the same flower. Two adjacent trees have the distinct life cycles. The chaotic landscape can be understood. Oh, it looks like we found the moribund performer. She is in the middle of a ballet. How charming. A dream stolen. The moribund performer stands in a glade of trees, captivated by a growing light. Something pale and vast and curious hangs over the waswood, insubstantial as a wraith and pale as milk. Folds of cloth hang above, as though a pavilion were mounted in the sky. As you near the performer, you can hear the sounds of applause. The light grows golden and glorious. We need to go near her. Wherever she is now, you'll need to reach her if you wish to see the coalescence. Beneath the stage lights. You step forward and find yourself stepping onto a stage. The lights are hot as candles melting upon your skin. You can barely make out the audience, shadows in the bright fire of the light. The moribund performer is ahead, alone, in her costume of signet crowned. The house is silent. There is only the performer and her dance. This is her last scene of the evening. There will not be a dry eye. So we can either disturb her. This is not real, you can feel something very sad and very hungry nearby. Or we can leave her here. She's never seemed more alive than where she is now. Enjoy the performance. Let her be. I'm not going to leave her to be eaten by something very sad and very hungry that is possibly nearby. So, let's disturb her. The applause. The dance goes on. How to stop it? The audience is rapt. The performer coiled and swooping in her steps, advancing and retreating across the stage. If you could but break her concentration. There is a pause as she shifts from one movement into the next, holding just long enough for the audience to appreciate the stillness of her raised limb. And into that pause, you step and begin to applaud. You are back in the Waswood now. The moribund performer blinks back tears. I don't want this. She turns, confused, looking at the forest. Above, the lights dim, as though turning away. So we woke her up, we're no longer enduring the coalescence. And we stumbled across an obtruder. I can only imagine she's kind of mad right now. Ah, we're back here. Shall we try to call out to another presence? See if we... I imagine that might be the rebel man, whose name completely left my brain. Someone could be around here. Something alive. Close. A dragonfly buzzes on a nearby tree. Its molted epidermis sways on its back, then wraps around its host like an article of clothing. It rubs together its front legs, clicking, clicking. This is the only life around. We get to stumble across the bundled man. He is preoccupied with a task, probably wondering why we didn't use his mirror. A body unravelled. The bundled man limps through an algae-infested river, his blood swirling in the still water behind him, leaving wispy red clouds. Thick clumps of plant matter collect around his ankles. His arms tightly enclose his abdomen. We should approach him. He's heading somewhere. He may know where to find the coalescence. Tunnel vision. Something slides out between his arms and lands in the water. A textured section of intestine. There are spots visible through the translucent serosa, reddish lesions dotting the tissue. He picks it up, inspects it, and wriggles it back inside himself. He walks on, not seeming to notice you're here. That is definitely a tale of terror. A man's intestines just fell out. Disturb him because he looks like he's about to die, or we can leave him. I am going on a disturbing spree, I think, because I'm kind of curious. I want him to tell me what's happening. He surely can't make it far in his condition. A task remains. Recognition snaps back into his features. He slows his pace. The algae around his ankles rotting away into thin tissue, reminiscent of his bandages. His clothes are stained with dark, dried blood. I can't leave. Not yet. We have to find the coalescence. The bundled man does not disappear from the dream. He runs off into the Waswood. Well, that didn't go the same as the dancer. Shall we mourn something lost? Familiarity. This is what you once had. Lost. Is forever gone. But it's here. Flawless. The shape, the smell, the specific changes it underwent in your memories, which only you could know. Is it real? It seems like this place is taking people's memories and showing them it again. Seems very... I imagine that would be very addictive. Let's amble through the trees again. That's the same as before. Here we go, the volatile veteran, that's his name. They study shadow in the trees. A mind shuffled. At the edge of a tree line, the volatile veteran stares into the shadows of the waswood, their legs stiff, their arms affixed to their side. Their mouth twitches open, but produces no discernible sound. We'll approach him. What are they looking at? This better not be a monster. Everything. You stare into the tree line, where distant silhouettes shift into incoherent anatomies. What looks like the form of a man bursts into a bell-shaped structure, overfilling the space between the rows of slim trees. The incongruous figures collide with one another, sometimes merging, sometimes repelling. The veteran's eyes twitch and bulge, analyzing the spectacle. Sweat rolls down their face. So, we're at the same choice as before. We can either disturb them, or we can leave them. I've disturbed the others, I'm going to disturb this man too. A puzzle, unsolved. At one moment, the veteran looks away from the shapes, transforming in the tree line, and you step in front of them. They reopen their eyes and jolt at your presence. Behind you, the confluence of shapes stops. All motion ceases. The veteran's fists unclench. Their breathing slows to a normal pace. None of this is real, but I almost made sense of it. I was so close, so close. They fall and clench at the dirt, and then vanish. You're left alone in the waswood. I think I might be ruining these people's days. Let's call to another presence again. We get to stumble across the coalescence. A low moan travels through the woods. Anguish cascading outward. You glimpse patches of spotty, diseased flesh through the trees. The true scale of the creature impossible to parse inside the nature blanket of invasive flora. Its scattered eyes are milky white, blind, suspended in muscle tissue. The many mouths frozen in sustained wails. It doesn't respond to your presence in any way you can understand. The coalescence. The bundled man hunches over a portion of the coalescence, a section of flesh with the teratoma attached. He stands up when you approach. His arms are wrapped tightly around his abdomen. He nods towards the coalescence. Please, help me with this. We have to get rid of it. Listen to the bundled man. He wants your help. The bundled man's plea. It's not. I don't think it intends to hurt us. It wants to be near us, like a mutt. The hurt is inevitable. We have to chase it off to ruin its trust. But I need your help. If I unbundle here, my body unravels. He grips his torso tighter. Why do this? He could just leave here instead. The bundled man shakes his head. He tells you the history of the gathering. How the first few journeys into the waswoods involved reconciliation with the past through repetition. We were naive enough to believe we could help the coalescence do the same. We can't. It is an open wound, swallowing others inside itself. It was compassion at first. I fear we've become dependent. How will the others feel? Most of the gathering seem to almost worship the coalescence. Some will be lost for a while. He pauses to consider your question. They'll need new ways of coping. Better ones. Individuals aside, I think the gathering as a whole will thrive without this burden weighing on it. I'm afraid of what it will otherwise become. What is the coalescence other than flesh? The remnants of someone betrayed. It is left behind misery, sloughed off to unburden its owner. The bundled man considers the teratoma on the coalescence. Its teeth slide around the mottled skin's surface. I pity it, but not enough to suffer with it. We've heard enough from the bundled man. The coalescence, the layered tissue of the coalescence thrums. So, we can either soothe it, it is alive and in pain, or we can frighten it, it will respond to aggression. This is a very personal choice of how you think your character is going to be in this world. I would never. Curiosity would mean that I couldn't frighten it. That's not really my style. You've got to be helpful wherever you can, even if it means potentially risking yourself. So we're going to soothe the coalescence. A quiet moment. You place a hand on the coalescence surface. Sweat forms under your palm, wetting its skin. Its wailing slows, lowering to a mournful note, and it sustains that volume while your hand passes over scabbed flesh. What wounded it? The coalescence swells and contracts, the gentle motion of an organ slowly filling with fluid. Tongues loll from their mouths, dripping saliva into the dirt. You take away your hand. The coalescence wails, a high-pitched whine that rolls across the landscape of the parabola, as the dream collapses in on itself and vanishes. The description of this thing makes it sound very terrifying. A pile of broken chairs. Honey-mazed members of the gathering stumble into chairs, snapping them into parts. A quieter crowd huddles near the curtain wall, whispering, trying to make sense of their experiences in the Woswood. Speak with the moribund performer. She's returned from the parabola. Her dream. The performer sits on the ground, cross-legged, her chin resting on cupped hands. She snaps at a honey-mazed member of the gathering when she steps on the hem of her dress with heeled boots. I'm not sure what I learned this time, if anything. Maybe it'll come later and speak with the bundled man. The bundled man drops an armful of scrap wood at your feet. Here, take over. I'm leaving. What's the point, if it'll just happen again? He turns away before you can react, walking through the patchwork tent with heavy, angry footsteps, grunting at anyone who tries to speak with him. Speak to the volatile veteran? They're lying prone in the dirt, away from anyone. The volatile veteran lies on the ground, watching the triangular weather vane rotate atop the tent through a hole in the fabric ceiling. They're singing a sea shanty under their breath. The lyrics about a man who falls in love with a monster. Oddly apt. And then we need to leave the tent. One last look. You step through one of the fabric holes. The heat of the fire at your back. And we seem to be at the epilogue. That was a much shorter story than I expected. It could be that I took all of the wrong choices. More than likely. So we will quickly do the epilogue. An encounter with a moribund performer. She calls your attention from across the room. Her chase overfilling with acquaintances, all of them exhibiting fashionable pagoda sleeves. Oh my luck! An old good friend, how serendipitous! Her tone of voice sounds a little too pleased, as if this exaggeration of your relationship were a show for her peers. On another note, I am totally using serendipitous more. It's a wonderful word. We can ask about the bundled man. You've heard rumours he returned to the tomb colonies. It's surely false, because he hated it there. No, it's true. Last I heard, he was at the tomb colonies. Not permanently. I think there's something about family, because that's where his sister was. Let's ask about the volatile veteran. You haven't seen them around. Who can say? She places a finger to her lips, considering the question. Truly, I don't think I've seen them since the gathering. I hope they found the last one to their satisfaction. And then we get to say goodbye. You've asked the moribund performer all you wanted to. Farewell then. You've completed the price of loss. Well, that was a lovely story, if not what, slightly shorter than I anticipated. I guess I do a goodbye. Thank you for watching. It's only going to be a 2-episode little series here. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this story. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Anyone wants to try and come up with any sorts of theories about anything, please let me know. I love it. I love to learn more about this whole world. I'm still very, very new to the vastness of Fallen London and the years and years and years of lore that's been set down by fans and all sorts. Just, I love it to pieces, but I don't know much about it. Most of what I learn comes from these boxes on the side of the screen. So, like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Comments are greatly appreciated. I will be doing more of these, obviously next month, and I hope to see you there. As always, I'll see you next time.